William Morrow and Harper Audio present The Polar Bear Expedition, The Heroes of America's Forgotten Invasion of Russia, 1918 to 1919, by James Carl Nelson, read by Johnny Heller. Author's Note: The Polar Bears. Anyone interested in the American experience in World War I is familiar with Belleau Wood, Cantigny, Soissons, and the Moussorgon. It's not as likely that they have heard of Vystavka, Kotish, Onega, Pinega, Oberozerskaya, Ust-Pedenga, Nizhny Gora. Those places and more are where American soldiers found themselves in a deadly day-to-day struggle with Bolshevik fighters in far northern Russia in the spring, fall, and winter of 1918 to 1919. They're battlefields on which more than 200 of them were killed in action or died from disease, wounds, and accidents, while handfuls of others were taken prisoner or went forever missing. When the men of the 339th Infantry Regiment, the 1st Battalion of the 310th Engineers, the 337th Field Hospital, and the 337th Ambulance Company finally returned home in July 1919, long after the Great War had ended, some of them paraded, while others went on to their mostly anonymous lives. They would come to refer to themselves as the Polar Bears, veterans of a most unusual conflict. Inquiries about their war and their experience were met by specious pleas and evasive avoidance, one former Polar Bear, Lieutenant John Cudahy, would write. For the enterprise will always remain a depraved one with status of a freebooter's excursion. There were in fact two American forces sent to Russia in 1918, the American Expeditionary Force, Siberia, based out of Vladivostok, and the American Expeditionary Force, North Russia, out of Archangel, near the White Sea, 1,000 miles north of Moscow. The Polar Bear Expedition focuses on the latter, the so-called North Russia Campaign, and shines a new light on America's intervention in the Russian Civil War and the heroic men who suffered in the intense cold of an Arctic winter, each one determinedly holding his piece of frozen ground for himself and the man next to him, while fighting and dying and wondering with increasing bitterness just why he had been sent into Russia, and why all of them had remained there for months after World War I had concluded. Their excursion, invasion if you will, constituted a major forgotten act in the long history of U.S.-Russian relations. The two nations' history began with the appointment of an American minister to St. Petersburg in 1790, and the subsequent establishment of trade between the two countries. 1867 saw the Russian sale of Alaska to the United States. Through the 19th century, one writer notes, there were no real conflicts between the vital interests of the Russian and American states, and relations remained more or less friendly until the revolution that, in late 1917, brought the Bolsheviks to power and led to the U.S. decision to join their European allies in an attempted intervention in northern Russia. After the Americans left northern Russia in 1919, a rapprochement between the two countries was established, followed by the odd and tenuous alignment of World War II, and thence the mistrust and enmity and jockeying for hegemony that marked the Cold War. While there was some easing of tensions following the dissolution of the Soviet Union in the late 1980s and early 1990s, relations between the two world powers have once more become strained, this time over allegations that Russia tried to sway our 2016 national elections, just as we almost unwittingly sought to interfere in the Russian Civil War 100 years ago. And so as the drama and mistrust continue between the two powers, this book takes a timely look back to where that drama began. It seems the past will always be prologue when it comes to the United States and Russia. Prologue. Nizhny Gora, Russia, January 19, 1919. They've been expecting it for weeks, hell, months, and so the men of Company A of the 339th Infantry Regiment, the Polar Bears, they would come to call themselves, have stood night and day in 40 below zero temperatures. They stamp their feet and try not to touch bare skin on the frozen barrels of their weapons, lest their flesh be ripped off. They peer through the deep ebony night from their dark, log-lined dugouts into the frigid tundra toward the south and east across the ice-choked
Sample complete. Ready to continue?